Short rebound knocked out of Shumpert's hands. Iguodala. Curry drives again. Left-handed blocked by James. Rejected out of bounds.
If you come at the king, you best not miss. To me, that felt like the dominant impression after the Cavs upset the Warriors in Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals. Many attempts have been made at unseating LeBron, just as many have been unsuccessful. Nobody had gone as far as Steph did in the mid-2010s, who seemingly had LeBron beat until, well, he didn't. Because when it came down to it, LeBron had played better than he ever had against Steph, better than any player had ever played, and Steph was below par. To those eager for a coronation, it must have been jarring. LeBron wins again. But that's only what we see on the surface. Attribute credit how you please, but no king has ever won a war alone. Since 2015, stopping Steph Curry has been the NBA's Da Vinci Code, and for 7 games in the NBA Finals, between 2015 and 2016, the Cleveland Cavaliers became one of the few to solve it. Steph Curry was a complicated machine, deceptively so, because he gave you no places to hide. It started at the start of the shot clock, where Curry was always liable to just fire with no warning, early in the clock, off the dribble, or by brushing off of a quick screen. 46.1% of his shots in his first MVP year came early in the clock, 46.3% in his historic second MVP season. This quick, and more importantly, accurate trigger put enormous pressure on defenses the moment Curry crossed half court. Because of this, Steph was, in a way, playing on easy mode, with an indomitable psychological advantage over his opponents before a shot taken or screen set. And this tangibly translated to the game, where defenders, almost subconsciously, brought themselves up to defend Steph super high like this, putting themselves off balance and out of position in a way Steph had no trouble exploiting, either on or off the ball.
Nice back cut. Yeah, great.
But even when sitting on Steph's jumper, a lot of the times it just didn't matter. All of these issues were amplified when guarding the pick and roll. Obviously, it wasn't worth anyone's time to defend Steph in drop coverage, so more of that excessive defensive attention, this time resulting in short roll takes for his talented bigs, as opposing bigs showed at the level of the screen. What's important to realize about Steph's on-ball game is how easy it looks. Defenses could not challenge him. Steph's athletic traits and elite spatial awareness helped him glide through the coverages that defenses were throwing his way, because defenses didn't know how to respond to this caliber of shooting threat. There was just no theory about it. So it's really just unfair what Steph did to defenses off the ball. Constantly in movement with otherworldly conditioning, he kept them guessing. Again, with Steph, there's nowhere to hide. You are stuck with him, whether or not he has the ball. In totality, this rebellion would be unlike any the king had ever seen. And, until recent times that is, unlike any the king would ever see again. So, what was the game plan? Well, a common theme of how Steph was defended was disorganization. Steph wasn't just hard to scheme, he was hard for defenses to even think about scheming because he exerted so many simultaneous threats. Indeed, Steph was the NBA's hardest math problem, and optimizing the numbers would be incredibly difficult. When faced with a challenging problem, the first step is always to calm down and tackle things one at a time. Then you have to remember that it's always easier to add than to subtract. So going into Game 1 of the 2015 Finals, the Cavs started with a shallow drop that put Steph against a big obstacle in front of him, Timofey Mozgov. But an immediate problem arose when Kyrie Irving died on screens, leaving Mozgov out in space with Curry. That was no good. Kyrie's inability to navigate screens was dangerous for Cleveland and needed to be addressed. But calm down and play your game. The next item was to limit Steph's usage of high ball screens, which, as previously mentioned, were more deadly than him in isolation. So the Cavs pushed Steph away from using screens and proactively sealed off rolls. But this didn't work. Steph started to just outspeed the defense and their arrangements.
What could be done now? Drop wasn't good, but our current coverages aren't any good either. How about a switch?
It was hard to justify a switch, but it was hard to justify anything in a situation like this, against a player like him. So, switch it is. Meanwhile, the off-ball defense just wasn't going well. On top of solely Kyrie, nobody on the Cavs could really navigate screens properly and were too threatened by Curry's shooting threat, like Dellavedova here, to actually guard him. Iman Shumpert looked fine, and Dellavedova would need to take his example in order to defend Steph properly, which he had varying results in doing. But the off-ball defensive effort on Steph was just extremely difficult in general. Purely a personnel issue, it seemed. Navigate the screens or get burnt. When the Cavs navigated the screens, the results tended to be good. When they didn't, they tended to be poor. At this point, the Cavs were in between a rock and a hard place. This is where he liked his opponents. Cornered. On ball, nothing could really be done. The best option was a switch, which would leave everything to chance. Chances that probably favored him. Off ball was somewhat similar. Navigate the screen or die. Each threat on its own was difficult, but the marriage of both of these threats was impossible. You can't force the ball out of his hands, but you can't keep it in them either. So, what is there to do? Let's just see what happens.
Johnson on Curry now, fires away. Curry trying to get going, puts it up. Dollar and Curry. Curry really slips. James now picks him up. Curry for three. It's good. Stephen Curry launches one. Back to 5. Curry dribbles it off the foot of Dellavedova, trying to save it. You gotta protect the three-point line. Curry spins, drives down the lane, ties the game. Fowler finds Curry. Curry on the drive, step back, puts it up. Air ball, James the rebound, and they foul him immediately with 4. Quiet. Golden State's bench dominated. Not the case in game 2. Curry rushed him. Curry now 1 for 6, jump with the rebound.
Throughout all of this, a seemingly deeper truth was uncovered. Any individual on-ball switch was left up to probability. An unfavorable one even, that was true. But each successive switch would see him more tired, him making more frantic and rushed decisions, him a sloppier passer who couldn't handle increased pressure. Obviously, it was risky to stay in a switch against him, but remember, he is a math problem, and tilting the numbers suggested merit in this approach. All in all, the defensive effort was not successful in year 1. A coup had happened, it had seemed, he took over, and the king was out. But there were threads to hold onto. Throw bodies at him. Make him work. He'll get his off ball and his shots early in the clock. You just have to let that happen. Remember, it's a numbers game. Coming into the 2016 finals, he had already been labored by injury. He would be more prone to tiring and mistakes in this state. Again, it was time to make him work.
Good defense there from Kevin Love.
In 2015, Tristan Thompson had been questionable, up and down. This year, he couldn't afford to be. And he wasn't. With light feet and fluid footwork on top of great reaction time, he mirrored him perfectly, tagging his hip on this drive to force the mistake with his frame and length.
Curry's pass stolen by Irving.
Him pulling back into a 3 on a possession like this was threatening, but Thompson was quick enough to allow his length to give strong contests when he tried to. If he parried Thompson's recovery with another crossover, Tristan would be there, ready to meet his next move. Maybe not exactly, but Thompson's huge frame gave him a margin of error which manifested in him walling off his drives to slow down his momentum, while Tristan got back into the play. If he wasn't forcing the drive and tried to play Tristan on the perimeter, Thompson would be in trouble. Thompson could move and had sizable margins of error, but this is him we're talking about. Tristan had to check for this possibility, of course, and he did so by shoving his long arms towards Steph's handle, giving him that resistive property that his body would have ordinarily given him should he have tried to drive. This combination of talents was hard for him to solve. On the switch, this double move usually opens up the big's hips for a drive, but Tristan recovered and with his arms cut the drive off. What next? A crossback, which Tristan scuttled back to before giving a swipe to not let him go into his next move. Trying Thompson at all was hard to justify, because he just was not in the shape to attack Tristan.
Quick starts have been critical recently.
So when the Cavs joined Thompson with other bodies, he became overwhelmed. Tristan was making him work. Now everybody else had to do their part. Help defenders, play aggressively. He's a good passer, he isn't a great one. Nail help had to be timely and backline defenders had to play high. This would leave the paint wide open, but it wasn't a paint he or the remainder of the Warriors offense could reliably access. So dictated the math. Get your hands in passing lanes. Again, play high and aggressively. Face the beast.
Irving back to James! Oh, he throws it down!
So in the end, the fatigue got to him. The constant switching, the help defense, and extra bodies got to him. Remember, he had traditionally always played his game on what seemed like easy mode, cruising and gliding throughout the court, never having to make an excessive movement. This final series changed that. He was making extra movements all the time, using up his energy and playing worse as a result.
Puts up a three! Rebound James with 30 seconds remaining!
And in the end, the rebellion was put down. Not effortlessly, but it was. No king wins a war alone. The generals play their part. So too do the decision makers. To dethrone him, to demystify Stephen Curry, Tyronn Lue had to think outside of the box. When matched up with an elite offensive force, conventional wisdom dictates that the ball should be forced out of their hands. For Steph, this didn't really work because the Cavs never found a loophole to abuse his off-ball work. He would effortlessly get his shots off the ball because the Cavs still couldn't navigate screens. Keeping the ball in his hands was just the way to go, as shady as it sounded, and conceding his early clock offense was just part of the process. The 2016 finals are widely used as fuel to this fire, a legendary and amazing rivalry without a doubt. But remember, no wars are fought alone.